Luke here for Papa Bear Adventures. Welcome to part 2 of our 2023 PC build. Next we're going to go ahead and install the CPU cooler. And we're going to be using the Corsair H150i water cooling unit. And this is a 360 millimeter radiator. So when picking out your cooling unit, you need to make sure that it will fit in your case of choice, which is one of the reasons that I went with the 5000D instead of the 4000, is so that the larger cooler would fit into the case. And I do plan on doing the radiator mount at the top of the case. So you want to make sure you have enough room to do that. Before picking your radiator and your cooler, you want to make sure your case can support having that in there. Looks like the instruction manuals for this will also be one that needs to be downloaded by QR code, and some limited safety and compliance information included. Inside the box, it comes with the cooler block attached to the radiator, pre-assembled of course. 3 fans. This one does come with the fan controller. Not all models will come with that, but this should come in handy for setting up the entire system's fans and controlling them from one fan controller. And then it does also come with the mounting brackets and accessories that make it compatible with various different types of CPU installations from both AMD and Intel. And it looks like they're conveniently labeled as to which is Intel hardware and which is AMD hardware. And plenty of thumb screws, mounting screws, everything you need to make sure you get this guy mounted into the case. So you select the back plate based on your socket. Of course, you want to consult the owner's manual. You also want to select the appropriate standoffs based on your socket. We have 1700. So here's the Intel 1700 socket and back plate. So we'll get that installed. And we'll just hang on to the rest of these in case for some reason we end up using this on a different PC in the future. And when installing the back plate, you may notice that these backplate sockets are adjustable, so they will just need to be adjusted to fit whatever board, whatever socket you're using, to line up with the holes to the PCB board in order to mount the water cooler or the cooling block. So I've turned the board up on its side. Line up the sockets. would be nice if this would come with like a sheet of paper or something that had like a little reference where you didn't have to do trial and error on lining these screws up into the socket holes. All right, after a considerable amount of tinkering, I got those lined up through the PCB board, and we will install the standoffs. Again, making sure you're using the correct standoffs. They appear to be the same length on either end. Get a light thread. Don't tighten them down too tight at first. Get everything started. Once you get them started, you can tighten them down so they're completely snug in a crisscross pattern. And use a crisscross pattern so that you are getting an even tightening across the mounting bracket. And just once more, give it a little bit more beyond that snug point. Once you have the backing plate secured snugly, it should be tight, not crushing the board, but definitely holding on to it very snug. To the PC, which will make it a little more difficult and awkward when putting it into the case. Definitely worth the effort to do a bench test before putting all your components in the case. You do want to make sure that you orient the cooler block the way you want it to be oriented inside the case. So you want to definitely pay attention to that orientation. So for our situation, this will be up above on the top, and the cooling block will be here with the Corsair symbol facing the top, facing straight out. So that's the orientation. We want to make sure we get it here on the outside so that it is correct when we put it inside the actual case. The cooling block does come with pre-applied thermal paste. You can see it there in the interesting pattern. If you do have to take it off, you will need to get new thermal paste to reapply that. So, go ahead and get our cooling block on here. And you just mount it down with the divided thumb attachments. And again, just doing that crisscross pattern. I'm just getting it snug now. And then I will tighten it down a little bit tighter to be firm after getting it snug. And that just makes sure that your pressure is applied evenly. All right, now that's securely attached. And for our bench testing, we're going to plug this into a USB port. This will go into SATA power port, and these header here will come off into the controller. So we have the CPU fan pin here. This goes to the fan controller that came with the H150, and we have a connection to a USB hub, and this will go to SATA power when we get the power supply back on the bench desk. So we will need to hook up the fans to the radiator for the bench test. So we will go ahead and take a look at doing that now. And Corsair recommends that you use these fans as air intakes. But the way I'm going to configure my case, these will be exhaust fans at the top of the case. And what I'm looking for is the flow indicator. Typically you will see on there an arrow that will show which way the fan's blowing and which way the fan is rotating. So that way you know how to orient your fan, whether you want it to be an exhaust fan or an intake fan, or pushing or pulling through your radiator. So again, we're just looking for this directional arrow and this rotational arrow. All right, for the purpose of the bench test, I have the fans installed. I will have to reorient these when I go to put it in because I want to get the cables on the other side going down the back wall. But for bench testing, just so that would sit smooth and flat, I put the cables on this side, and I will reorient the fans so that the cables are on the opposite side of the radiator whenever I go to put it inside the actual case. Thank you for joining us for part 2 of our 2023 PC build. As always, comments are welcome, and mind how you go.